very good evening and welcome to Power News. I'm Juhi Rajput. In today's episode, we're going to have a discussion on role of hydro generation in maintaining the grid stability. And to discuss the same, we've been joined by Mr. Gurdial Singh, former Chairperson, Central Electricity Authority, Mr. Yogendra Prasad, former Chairman, NHPC, Mr. R.P. Singh, CMD, SJVN, Mr. S.C. Sharma, CEO, Hydro Jindal Power, Mr. M.N. Ravishankar, and Professor Atmanand, MDI, Gurgaon. Very good evening and welcome to Power News. On 2 consecutive days, Monday and Tuesday, the nation saw the power blackout for 6 to 8 hours and grid failure affecting 22 major states of the country. Though the Ministry of Power is examining the cause, but as a sector expert, I'd like to ask you that what could be the reason behind the failure of the grid?
The failure which has occurred, the reason for that is not very clear, because as far as frequency is concerned, it is supposed to be 50 plus. The only reason could be overloading of some line, and that is because of over withdrawal by some of the states. Now we have got a system that whenever there is overloading is there is a central monitoring system is there, and where we get that what is the overload, and we accordingly forewarn the state authorities to cut down on the load. But they never heed to that, maybe because of political compulsions and other compulsions, and the failure has occurred. But as far as our technical competence is concerned, our system is quite competent, quite modern, and our engineers have been operating it very efficiently. But there has to be a discipline. People have to follow the instructions, because there are a number of lines. Every state is getting fed from different lines. And whenever there is an overloading, either the line should trip automatically, for which the protection system is there, but sometimes it is bypassed, or we have to give instructions which are not followed, and that leads to overloading of the lines and the problem. We will come to know the reason once we totally analyze it. Otherwise, it is a guesswork.
I fully agree with Mr. Gurdial Singh. For the first day when the frequency was low, the grid failed. On the second day when 3 regions failed, the frequency was comfortable. I don't say it was good, it was comfortable. That means if you draw corollary, it is overloading of lines only. And if you see, there is a weakest link, Agra to Gwalior. A day before it tripped. So this could be a probable reason again. So maybe we should work on the interlinkages between the inter-regions. Had that link further gone, maybe Western region could have also collapsed. But I'm more worried about this system strengthening. Yes, Indian system is quite robust, I don't deny, but it's a very large system. And the megawattage is now what the power grid is handling. That is also quite phenomenal. And when we say overdraw limits, yes, CRC has given some overdraw limits for each state. But I personally feel that the independence of load dispatch center should be more powerful. They should be given a key to switch on and switch off the states, so that the grid failures doesn't happen. I'm more worried once the southern region is also linked, and by chance, if all the 4 regions trip, do we really get the startup power? We have to really bank on the hydro, and to go to the southern region, because southern region only Sri Salam is there, that can cater around 1200 or 1500 megawatts. But if it is a drought year, water levels are less, what will happen to Indian scenario? That is the more worrying factor. I think we should more focus on taking the cue from this failure. What best we can do that in future it doesn't recur.
Many states in northern region are overdrawing power even after repetitive reminders. What should be the way forward for effective implementation of grid code?
But the basic technical reason that the grid has failed because of the overdrawal by some of the states like UP, Rajasthan or Haryana and Punjab against the scheduled quota, and they were not supposed to withdraw more than what was the scheduled quota according to the guidelines issued by the CA and the CRC in the past. But this has happened, everybody knows about it. The system that is prevalent right now in our electricity distribution from the grid up to the end consumer is that any state government can withdraw excess and they can pay the penalties for that, and there is no check and balance on that. And therefore, these are larger issues which refer to the power sector reforms today in our country, and we have failed completely in achieving some of the basic objectives of the power sector reforms. Everybody agrees with that in our country at the state level, cross subsidization. The power is heavily subsidized, And whenever there is a heavy demand for power from the farm sector, from the rural sector, the demand for the power from the grid goes up very high, and that is the real problem that has happened right now. So therefore, the government, in order to appease the interest of the farmers, draws heavily from the grid and power goes to the farm sector, but they are heavily subsidized at the cost of the industries and the urban consumers. Now, how long we will continue with the policy of the subsidization and cross subsidization, which is affecting the balances financials of the state electricity?
Well, grid discipline is the very vital component of the power sector, and frequency must be maintained between 49.5 to 50.2 Hz. But if you look at the past records, in many cases, frequency crossed the mark due to demand and supply mismatch. According to you, how could the grid be managed in such conditions?
If you see the curve of one day, even load curve of one day and night, it is varying. It is never constant. Thermal power stations, nuclear power stations are best suited for base load. If there is a variation, it cannot be done quickly, because power requirement increases or decreases immediately on instantaneous basis, for which only two alternatives are there. That is hydro and gas. Even in USA, they have 75% gas. Wherever there is no hydro, there is mostly gas. But hydro is the first option for any country in the world. If hydro share is more, we have flexibility, because in hydro within seconds we reduce the load. That's why we are having reservoir and the pump storage. Pump storage, why you are having, where you are pumping 100 megawatt power, getting 70 megawatt only to stabilize the frequency. Gridco has made 47.9 to 50.2 frequency to be maintained, which cannot be maintained with thermal based and nuclear based. That is the fundamental question. Nobody is speaking technically, this is very much required.
Unlike other machines, hydro machines are very quick to start, clean, green, everybody knows it, and very quick to start and stop, and so it takes care of the load. So far the grid failure is concerned, what has happened in relation to hydro, we need to operate our all thermal or hydro machines. The time is coming, the country needs to think for the free governor mode of operation. Again in hydro, this free governor mode of operation, so that any deficit which is coming in the network is immediately taken care of by the machines. So that is also a thought which needs to come up. I believe several things is to be talked about. The basic thing is we need to ramp up the generation, and so when we talk about the generation, we must talk about hydro.
Hydro has enormous advantage for keeping grid stable, but even then our policy does not reflect the kind of commitment which is required for developing hydro projects.
The issue is hydro has been kept at the back seat. It is, people think, because since it takes 7 to 8 years, sometimes at least 6 to 7 years, 2 years it takes for the clearances, land acquisition and all those things. So ultimately after the things are in place, it takes another 5 years. So 7 to 8 is the normal period, the gestation period is more. Whereas thermal comes in next 4 years. But with only getting thermal, the grid frequency cannot be controlled. It's a base load. Whereas hydro, it's a renewable source, environmental friendly, the quick start and stop, within seconds it can come, and if we give more impetus to the pump storage schemes, definitely grid can be controlled.
Well, it's time to take a short break. You keep watching Power News. Welcome back. You're watching Power News. In today's episode, we're discussing a role of hydro generation in maintaining the grid stability. Well, for peak demand, hydro is the best suitable option. But if we see the growth, we have not been able to achieve much. Major hydro projects are stuck, amounting to almost 10,000 megawatt capacity. According to you, what could be the reason?
The only problem in this country are our political bosses. They are not allowing proper mind to function at proper place. Even the High Court of Calcutta has told that only technical people should be preferred as chairman of the and MD of the NHPC. This is court order. Now since last year, 7-8 years, only finance man was chairman, now another finance man was chairman acting, again removed one, IAS has been put. Now this is the question, because government does not want that people should function properly. That is why nothing is moving in this country. The power ministry is not given any importance. The home ministry is very important for everybody. But power ministry, which is very important for the nation, for the people of the nation, has been put under dual charge of a particular minister who is looking after company, but now he has put additional charge of power. This is the treatment given to the power. Now in America, 5 hours power, 6 hours power had gone in the New York. Entire government was at a standstill because they are understanding the value of power. For hydropower, expertise are required. Those are really expert who can create project. There was time when Mr. Y.K. Alag was the minister. He had called the CA chairman, Mr. R.N. Srivastava was the chairman, Hassan CWC chairman. Dr. Chamera tunnel was to be repaired. Both opposed that if the tunnel water is drained out and because the machine was tilted. Both opposed it. I told him, sir, I am NHPC, the practicing doctor, like practicing doctor. If somebody has cancer, he has to be operated. Kindly give risk to me. He told that, Mr. Prasad, if you fail, I will dismiss you. I told him before that I will resign. And I made the tunnel repair for the first time in the country. Subansiri project, after my departure, only 10% work has been done. Unnecessary, the Parvati project has been delayed at 100 megawatt. All the projects have been delayed. Because decisions are not coming. But this has to be thought of by the minister properly.
Around 10,000 megawatt capacity planned in 12th 5-year plan is expected to slip to 13th 5-year plan. Every time government keeps promising, but they're not really able to achieve or meet the target. What should be the way forward according to you?
Mostly it has been happening because of the policy changes. You know, earlier the policy was that all the power projects were being done in state sector or were being done by the central utilities or central PSUs. But after this hydro policy came and we went for this privatization in a big way. So shifting from one set of system to another set of system, it involved certain delay. In the meantime, the environment, they came up with new regulations. One was that, you know, there should be a particular difference or lively river between the upstream and the downstream projects. So it affected their location vis-a-vis the upstream projects or downstream projects. Now very recently in one of the projects, they have come with another regulation. They came with the environment releases, maybe 10%, 15%. Now in one of the projects they have come that it should be 20% for the lean months, and even for monsoon month when there is overflow of water, they have specified there should be minimum 30% of water releases for environmental purposes. So it will make the projects economically unviable. So such like changes, you know, these are affecting, and we are not able to make much progress in the last 10 years or so. Practically, we are going down. In 10th plan, we achieved nearly 7,886 megawatt. The progress in the 11th plan was much lower, and with the type of startup we are seeing on the private projects and the type of atmosphere which is prevailing in Arunachal Pradesh, I don't think that hydro has got a much better future until unless government takes interest and realizes the importance of hydro development.
What Gurdial Singh Sahab has said, I will simply add one more thing, that the timeline for getting all these clearances, whether environment clearances, forest clearances, or whatever clearances, this needs the involvement of the central government as well as the state government and various agencies. We call it, there was a time we were calling it, it should be, the clearances should be a single window clearance. Is it a single window clearance? It takes normally 3 years. And you know hydro, a huge investment, something around 7 to 8 crores per megawatt. But the fact of the matter is, we do simultaneously for getting the DPR cleared from Central Electricity Authority. It gets cleared in reasonable time. And at the same time, until unless your all forest and environmental clearance is there, you do not have any land, whether it's the forest land, government land, or private land. You are not having anything, you cannot award your works. So if 3-4 years takes the clearances time, certainly it's going to cost the project, and it is going to question the viability of the scheme itself which has been planned.
Well, in the beginning of 11th plan, many private hydro developers entered into the sector, but not much capacity has been added by private sector. According to you, what could be the reason?
The criticality of any project, most of our hydro projects, is the financial viability. If we see the track record of the NHPC or the any other private developers, the DPRs say X cost, and by the time the completed cost, it is always X plus some delta. Suddenly there is a change in law. Some state comes with a thing that 15% additional discharge have to be kept for the lien period, or some other changes come. Having invested the project halfway through, and now the change in law, the project becomes unviable. The moment we factor all those things, the bankers, they give a SORI stating that the costs are going up, we will not fund you until unless your tariffs are increased. The moment the project goes for tariff increase with the state utility, they say that you have signed a PPA for a fixed tenure at fixed price. Where is the scope for increasing? So these force majeure conditions for a hydel project will never work. I think in my view, hydel project should be on cost plus basis, because in India, even the peaking stations like gas, we are treating as a base load station. Hydel stations, we are treating as base load stations for tariff calculations. And if we go for the price difference during the peak hour and off peak power, having signed the PPA, I don't have the flexibility.
At what tariff rate the hydropower producer would like to supply power to the end-use consumers? That is also a very important problem. Cost of operation and production of the hydropower is very high. The tariff that they get is very low, and that is the difference between the tariff and the cost is widening very high. The state governments are required to file petitions before the SERC, and then the tariffs are to be revised to look into the rise in the cost. But that is not happening at that level, and many state governments have not been able to revise that tariff. This is a political problem.
My friends, Professor Atmanand, he has talked about, and Mr. Ravishankar, he has talked about the financial burden of the hydro project. Why? It is all the time, which is, time is taken more means you are adding to the cost, and finally the generation cost. And a first year tariff, or you to call about that levelized tariff. We have not talked about the other part of a hydro, the good part of a hydro, that hydro merely does not operate merely for 30 or 35 years. Even after 30, 35 years, example in our country is Bhakra Nangal and machines that has been renovated, and it will generate for another 30, 35 years.
Should hydro sector be given a preferential tariff as given in the case of solar?
As far as hydro is concerned, it is known that it's a peaking power. For peaking power, there has to be a different tariff. The time of the day tariff must be introduced so that the high capital cost of the project, it gets compensated. If the IPPs or the private producers have to accelerate the development of the hydro, return on equity has to be different than the return on this. In the CERC also, we find that they are perhaps on the reservoir projects, perhaps they are inclined to increase by 1%. But why not the run-of-the-river schemes? After all, it is say peaking energy, whether it is a reservoir or whether it is a run-of-the-river scheme, number one. So return on equity should be re-looked, re-engineered for the hydro projects.
Well, due to hydro's initial high tariff, it is not viable for the state to sign the PPA with the hydro developer. What mechanism should be developed to overcome this issue?
Even where I stay in Gurgaon, this year they had 20 hours power cut, phenomenal power cut. But the state doesn't buy. It is a monopoly business in India, not a monopoly business. Under the philosophy, monopolies were to be deregulated and bring in competition. But here it is a monopoly, single buyer. Single buyer doesn't buy power. So what will you do? You keep on lowering the price. And Rajasthan, UP or Punjab, they said that I cannot buy beyond 2 rupees 50 paisa. If that is the market price, then the philosophy or the government of India should open its eyes and say that we should have distribution reforms before doing anything else. And change the act accordingly, that mandatorily, come whatsoever, your tariff shall be indexed to either inflation or some indices. We can have a new index stating that for electricity, the price shall be automatically increased by that level, so that the states are forced to increase the price, and when they are increased to price, the consumers start paying the correct true prices. As of now, even though I am affording to pay, but most of my counterparts, they are not paying, because the SCB prices are 2 rupees 50 paisa for my domestic consumption. If these prices are not linked to inflation, at least, if not to the generator's requirement, this sector is not going to get revived.
Well, it's time to take another short break here. You stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Power News. In today's episode, we're discussing role of hydro generation in maintaining the grid stability. Pala, Maneri, Bhairav Ghati, Uri, Subhansuri are some of those projects on which almost 20,000 crores have already been spent. But they all are sitting idle due to several protests taking place here and there. In fact, it was public money which was used for the development of these projects. How could we think of development in such a scenario?
If government would have desired and you would have a foreign policy in public sector itself, more than 1 lakh megawatt would have been added till date. But we did not allow it to happen actually. In the government working, I have seen everything that in government department people feel, just see environment and forest ministry, they feel that it is my will, whenever I want, I can give clearance. Whenever they want, they can delay the thing. Unless the will of working is there, this country cannot rise. Just see the China. 12 lakh people were shifted in 3 gorges projects in 1 year. And 21,000 megawatt they have made. If government wants, anything can be done, hill can move. If government does not want, nothing can move. I have done so many projects here, 20 years that Indira Sagar project was closed. Mr. Gurdial Singh knows it very well. And within 3 years I did it. I wanted to shift 57 kilometers with line, which are running 80 trains, and I got it done. If there is a will, power, if you have a strong support from the government, at that time Divya Singh helped me a lot. He was chief minister there. Dhumal Sahib helped me a lot, then Sarda Jal Vidyut Nigam had come, because otherwise not a reality at all, it was going to be closed. Now today it is giving a lot of profit, a lot of good power to the nation. Unless government of India put a lot of pressure on development of hydropower, the power synergy of the country can't be improved. We don't have gas. So what alternative is there? You have to survive, if the society has to survive. Hydro we have to develop, whatever may come, may go, but if you don't develop hydro, survival of human being in this country will be difficult.
Well, India wants to achieve a status of a developed country by 2020. But if we take a look at our power sector, we only have 65% assured coal supply. And as far as gas-based plants are concerned, only 40% capacity utilization is there. Hydro front, nothing much we have been able to achieve. Don't you feel the policy makers should do some rethinking so that the growth which we are aspiring for should not be affected?
By 2020, we have got only 8 years left. I think opening new coal mines in India will be a problem. The only failure which I can think of is that once we started importing coal, that time we have not got the warning signal. We should have taken the action about 5 years back. Then the situation would not have been that bad. But at the moment, we are stuck up with coal supplies. Now blending is being done. We are trying to import as much as coal as possible. And apparently there is no other alternative. Hydro is stuck up because of the environment issues and local issues. And nuclear has got its own problem. So definitely there is a need. Government has to review the environment policy. Government has to review the role of the state sector in giving various clearances and expediting the implementation of the projects. And for coal also, the environment clearances will need to be expedited, and they will have to go for maybe the privatization or maybe for the companies which can open those mines at a faster rate. Otherwise, the future is not that bright.
Professor Atmanand, what are your views?
Coal and power industries, unfortunately, in our country, go together in terms of growth and development. If there is 1% increase in the growth of power industry, then we say that is because of the coal. If power industry is not growing by 1% or 2% per annum, then it is because of the coal shortage. This linkage has to be broken, and therefore we have to think about that the gas shortage, the coal shortage, fuel shortage will continue to remain there in our country. Why are we not thinking in terms of renewable energy or nuclear energy? Second thing I would like to say that much of the problem that lies at the state electricity board level is that their financial turnaround has not yet happened. Electricity Act 2003 and then again in 2005 has talked in detail about the role of the competition, the role of the market, the role of the market determined tariff policy and also deregulation, etc. But tell me, how many states electricity boards have really followed it? Even the central government has followed it. Unless we allow the competition at the production end, how can you think that more suppliers will come and generate more power? So we will remain, the supply of power will remain in shortage.
We just compare what was the installed capacity in our neighboring China a decade earlier and India, and what China is today and where we are. You have fossil fuel like coal, you have seen, and ultimately it's a fossil fuel, it's a limited resources what we have in our country. Limited resources we have on country. We have no choice but to go for the hydel. And hydel, what we have discussed, it has to be a clear policy of the nation that we wanted to develop as has been developed in China. There has to be a clear-cut road network to access the site where say 55 or 60,000 megawatt is yet to be developed in Arunachal Pradesh alone. That road network has to be created, the clearances has to be created, and if these things are placed, I think there is no doubt that hydro cannot be developed.
How hydro projects should be accelerated? Now, acceleration comes basically from the government, because all clearances are either by the central government or by the state government. The machinery of the state government and the central government must get, dovetailed so that the single window clearance, which is the, basically a topic of the day, must happen. It is not happening. It is on paper. The Environment Ministry goes, in one direction because of its own merits. The land acquisition has its own merits and demerits, although, particularly in Arunachal Pradesh, the land records are not available. Land records have to be created. So it is taking minimum 2 to 3 years for the clearances. This should be reduced, then only the hydro projects can happen. From Central Electricity Authority, getting the techno-economic clearance is not a problem. It is very smoothened out, and within a reasonable time, you get the technical clearance of the project.
Well, with this last comment, we come to an end of this discussion. I'd like to thank all the panelists for joining us here in Power News. Thank you.